have the intent to deprive Foster Farms of their property. Do you recognize that that chicken was property of Foster Farms while it was in that truck?
Foster Farms treated it like garbage, so
Well, hold on, that wasn't my question. You recognize that was property of Foster Farms while it was in that truck? That was my question.
well, that was a Foster Farms truck, I knew that,
And
yes.
so Foster Farms owned chickens that were in
Yes.
that truck?
Mhm.
And it was destined for the Foster Farms processing facility?
Yes.
Right ahead of you?
Yes.
Now, you said you're from Ashland, Oregon?
Mhm.
Did you drive
I'm
there?
not from there, I live there now.
I mean, you live there now, I'm sorry. Did you drive down there for this protest in Sudan?
No, I was actually living in Los Angeles at the time, so I have just moved to Ashland.
Okay, well, I'll restate the question then. Did you drive up from Los Angeles for this protest?
Yes.
Your Honor. Objection misstates the witness testimony. She did not say she was there for the protest. She said she was not participating.
Oh,
in the
yes, I
protest.
wasn't there for the protest, I was there that day.
Okay, so you're a member of a group called Direct Action Everywhere, is that correct?
Yes.
What is Direct Action Everywhere? It's a group that promotes this concept that you're talking about open rescue?
Yeah, it promotes open rescue and the right to rescue animals who are in need and suffering, yes.
Your co-defendant's a member of this group as well?
Yes, she is.
And this group is the group that planned the protest at Foster Farms. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And I've asked your co-defendant a few questions about this. You're aware of the U-Haul truck that blocked the entry to Foster Farms?
Objection, this goes outside the scope of direct, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Were you aware of that truck?
Yes, I didn't see it, but I was aware that, and I knew that that was why that truck was stopped.
So you're aware that truck was stopped because the entrance was blocked to Foster Farms?
Yes,
And that's when you ran up to the side of the truck, as we saw there, right?
yes.
Now, the chicken you took out, I noticed in the video that as you were running back to the car with it, its wings were flapping and it was squawking pretty loud. Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
It was my bad. I didn't carry him the way I should have. I should have kept his wing deeper, and it was a mistake on my part. But the
Well, fair enough. Let me ask you another
oh.
question. Are you familiar with something called sudden death syndrome of chickens?
no, I'm not actually. No.
So chickens exposed to stress. can die.
Objection, this is counsel testifying.
Are you familiar with that?
Okay.
I'm-
Outside the scope of direct, it's calling for expert opinion from a witness who's a lay witness. She's not a veterinarian.
I'll concede she's a lay witness, John.
Okay.
So to that point, you don't have any veterinary training, right?
No, I'm an EMT, but it didn't cover chickens.
So in a few seconds, you ran up, you grabbed this chicken and got back to the car. You drove off after that?
Yes, we drove back to give the chickens medical assistance.
Now, you say that the chicken you took is healthy right now. Is that right?
Well, I should qualify that the diseases that Ethan was diagnosed with they can be latent. So how healthy is he? 100% healthy? I can't say that, but he appears extremely healthy.
Okay. Are you willing to give him back to Foster Farms?
No,
So Foster Farms shouldn't have their property back?
I don't think Foster Farms would want him back because they as I said, they didn't treat him well in the first place.
And you're not
But
willing to give him back, right?
he's also living in quarantine because of the exposures that the diseases he was exposed to at the farms.
And you're not willing to give him back, I believe you answered that. Is that?
I wouldn't give him back. He's not in my care right now, but no, I would not give him back.
So-
Why would I give him back to someone who had treated him so badly?
And I understand you hold that belief very deeply.
Yes.
So what I was asking though was more about, do you recognize that that chicken is property of Foster Farms?
Yeah, I think probably that
And,
it was a Foster Farms chicken. Mhm.
okay, and so this chicken that you took, you say you gave it medical care and it's recovered now.
He seems to be healthy now, yes.
And is it still?
He's still
now
in
property of Foster
quarantine.
Farms?
Hmm?
Still now property of Foster Farms? Or have they
Your Honor,
been deprived of it permanently?
Counsel was asking for a legal conclusion about events 3 years later.
Okay. The question is a two-part question. The first question is appropriate, the second question is not.
Can you restate the first?
I'll go ahead and move on. So you said in your testimony that these chickens are bred to make Foster Farms a lot of money?
I think
Objection misstates testimony.
I don't believe it does.
I don't believe she said the chickens are bred to make Foster Farms a lot of money.
I don't recall hearing
I
that.
I recall
I
hearing
don't
that very
think you said that.
specifically.
Yeah,
I recall hearing that too.
all right, why don't you just ask the question?
All right, so do you believe these chickens are bred to make foster farms a lot of money?
I believe that factory farming is a very intense process that can make companies a lot of money for the least input.
Now, it's fair to say that the act of processing chickens, or any animal for that matter, for food or any other product, is not a pleasant one. Would you agree with that?
For me, yes. I don't want to speak to anyone else, but yes, I agree.
So are you aware that chickens are used for things other than food when they're processed?
Yes,
And are you aware that like their feathers are used for certain things?
yes.
And that there's a process called rendering where they're converted into other uses than just food?
Yes.
Your Honor, objection, I don't think this witness had, I'm sure, first, I'm not sure what the relevance of this is.
Objection overruled.
So you're aware that there's other things than processing for just food that these chickens are used for by this company?
Some of the chickens, I would imagine that sick chickens wouldn't be used for that because that wouldn't be good for it to go into the consumer stream at all, to have chickens with viruses and diseases.
Now, going to this letter that you say you rely on, the letter was from 2018?
Yes.
And the letter
Your Honor,
was,
just the objection, the question is vague as to which letter. There have been multiple letters discussed.
the letter you characterize as a legal opinion is from 2018, is that correct?
Yes.
And it's written in response to a request by Direct Action Everywhere for a legal opinion, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And the other person you said that wrote a letter complaining, that was a employee of Direct Action Everywhere, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
She's
She's not affiliated with Direct Action Everywhere in any way?
if she's affiliated, it's only because she believes that the work that Direct Action Everywhere is doing. But I guess I should say, I'm not sure if she is paid. I know that most people aren't paid.
I'm sorry, maybe I was confusing. The letter that this other person wrote, and I'm referring to the letter of August 12th.
Mr. Kobe, since you're gonna move about, let's put a microphone on you,
Well, here, I'll do this.
okay?
So that's got the letter from August 12th that you referred to from this other person has a logo for DXE or Direct Action Everywhere on the top left of that letter, is that correct?
It says it's not admitted, is that mean?
I'm asking you about the logo on the top left, DXE?
Yes, it says Direct Action Everywhere, yes.
And just so we're clear here, Bonnie Clapper, forgive me, the name escaped me, but this is the letter written by Bonnie Clapper on letterhead for Direct Action Everywhere.
Yes.
Now, you stated earlier you're a member of Direct Action Everywhere. Are you aware who Bonnie Clapper is?
Yes, I've spoken to her.
So she is a member.
I don't know if she's a member. I don't know.
Are you aware
Your
of
Honor,
her?
objection, I think the judge already ruled that the credentials of Bonnie Clapper are not admissible or appropriate questioning. And I'd say if we're not entitled to ask questions about her, the prosecution should not be either.
The objections overruled, my understanding the questions different.
So you said you relied on this opinion from 2018 that you called a legal opinion from a lawyer and professor. Is that correct?
This is from Professor Hadar Avaram.
Right.
Okay.
So are you aware of any opinions contrary to that? Have you done any research of that to see if anybody else disagrees with what this letter says?
I've heard a lot about, I know you might disagree, but I haven't done research.
Okay. And with regard to Foster Farms, I asked this of your co-defendant. Are you aware that for 8 years up through 2001, they were certified humane?
I'm very aware, but I don't respect American Humane. It's a scam organization. Even in Hollywood, we look down on that certification because the movies that are American Humane certified have been found to have a lot of animals killed and hurt.
Okay, so that's an opinion you don't respect.
I would say that the certification to me is not something that really is about the humane treatment of animals.
So is it fair to say you don't respect that opinion?
The opinion, I don't respect the certification, yes. No, I don't.
Okay, and is it fair to say that the certification as humane is contrary to any sort of claim of right to rescue?
Objection, that's a legal question.
I'm sorry, could you?
So the opinion, and I know you don't agree with it, you just respect that opinion, and that's not what I'm asking, but the opinion that Foster Farms is certified to be humane, is that go against a right to rescue argument that you've made?
I don't know, and they're not just, pardon me if I'm being, they're not certified humane, they're American Humane Certified, because there's another organization called Certified Humane.
Right,
There's lots of different things that each company can buy to pretend that they're treating animals well.
There's a lot of organizations, and I'm sorry if I'm reversing your words there, but where I'm going with this is that they're an opinion contrary to your belief of right to rescue.
I don't know, actually. I don't think American Humane has anything specifically about right to rescue.
So you drove up from Los Angeles for this protest, and that's when you took the chicken, right?
Your Honor, objection to state's testimony. She said
Sustained.
repeatedly that she was not there for the protest.
So if you weren't there for the protest, why did you drive up?
I actually was in San Francisco because I was teaching an open rescue course.
Well, then we're a couple hours away from San Francisco in Merced County. What brought you to Merced County if not for the protest?
Your Honor, objection asked and answered. Direct examination.
Well, there was people concerned about Foster Farms, so yes, I was intending to be at the demonstration, but when Alicia talked to me about rescuing some animals on the slaughter truck, then I never went to the demonstration. But I would have very much been happy to go.
So you knew there was a demonstration, you were intending to be there, is that fair to
That
say?
was my intent, yes.
Okay, and then you switched to join up with your co-defendant to take the chickens as well?
We decided that because there were so many people protesting and demonstrating at the slaughterhouse, that we would be better used rescuing some beans, yes.
Okay. And have you ever disagreed with somebody about the care of an animal? In other words, have you ever said to somebody, I don't like the way you're caring for an animal?
My husband, I tell him all the time, he says that my standards are too high for my very spoiled cats.
So your standards are too high, his standards are lower?
I feed them more, I feed them too much.
I mean no disrespect, of course, when I say that. But that's a judgment call on your part that you treat these animals better than somebody else does?
No, it's, yes.
Okay. And that's a judgment call in your mind?
I would say it is, yeah, a judgment call.
And in this case, you made a judgment call that Foster Farms wasn't treating these animals correctly, and that's why you acted?
I made a judgment call, as well as many of the investigations showing the cruelty at Foster Farms. A lot of people agreed with me. But yes, it was my call. I take full responsibility.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
You redirect.
Alexandra, the American Humane Association has come a few times to justify the condition of animals at Foster Farms. Can you just tell us, why are you concerned about the American Humane Association certification?
I actually was doing, I was reading about the American Humane Association because I was doing investigations into dairy calves, how they treat calves. And the American Humane Association allows for calves to be castrated with no anesthesia whatsoever if it's before they're a couple months old. And they can band testicles and just at 4 days old and just keep those bands on until the testicles fall off, and that is with no anesthesia whatsoever. These are babies, and I find that cruel.
Are you aware of independent news organizations that have condemned the AHA certification as a scam?
Yes, oh yes, the NPR and many organizations. If you Google American Humane scam, you will find a lot of very concerned people, because companies pay the American Humane for the certification. So it's understandable as a business that American Humane would want to have a lot of business. So their standards are extremely, extremely low.
So just to be clear, your understanding is that American Humane isn't actually certifying, they're actually kind of being paid by the factory farms.
They're being paid, yes, they're being paid to get the certification.
The factory farms are effectively their customers.
Yes, because factory farms know that Americans care very much about the food that they're getting, and they want the animals to be treated well. We all do, really. I know it's a matter of judgment, but I think we all can agree that animal cruelty is wrong, and to boil animals alive and bury them alive is just not right. And a company that does that shouldn't be certified as humane.
No further questions, John?
All right. Counsel, sidebar, there's one of the jurors have a question, and I'm going to discuss with counsel before we answer the question.
Your Honor, can we do maybe perhaps a 10-minute bathroom break while we're doing
Oh,
that?
yeah, let's do that. Thank you. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute recess at this point. Then, ladies and gentlemen, again, remember. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we're back on record on People versus Alexandra Paul and Alicia Santurio, 22 CR 018998 and B. All right, and counsel and the defendants are present. All 12 jurors plus two alternates are present. All right, the jury has two questions for Ms. Paul, and the court will only have Ms. Paul answer one of the questions. The other question, ladies and gentlemen, have been asked and answered. The question that the court will pose to Ms. Paul from the jury is this: as either defendant, ask or write to Foster Farms to take away or take any sick or injured chicken, knowingly that they would mistreat. Now let me read that, that's bad. As either defendant, ask or write to Foster Farms to take away sick or injured chicken, knowing that they would mistreat, kill, or throw away the chickens. Do you understand the question?
I'm sorry, no, I
Yeah, let
don't.
me reread that. Has either defendant ask or write to Foster Farms to take away, I'm not sure if that's away or any, to take. I think it's away. Okay, let me read that. Has either defendant ask or write to Foster Farms to take away sick or injured chicken, knowing that they would mistreat, kill, or throw away the chickens?
I'm so sorry that I'm still not entirely clear, but if I could just perhaps, hopefully I'll answer and you'll tell me if I'm not. I know that Alicia, my co-defendant, has gone to Foster Farm headquarters and to discuss how the treatment of chickens, and they wouldn't even see her. So beyond the letters that have been written to Foster Farms, there have been attempts, not only by Alicia, but by other people, to actually go in person, and they haven't even responded or agreed to speak with us. So that answers the first part. In terms of sick and injured chickens, I don't know if this answers the question, but when they're not supposed to go through the food chain. So they should be taken off the food chain. And in the video that I saw the night before the rescue, I saw workers pulling chickens off the line, the slaughter line, and throwing them on the ground. Those were the ones that were supposed to be condemned, not allowed to be in the food chain. Unfortunately, because the lines go so fast, this is not the workers' fault at all. The lines go really fast so that the company can make the most money possible. They pull often down healthy chickens. They don't hang them properly, and that's why they get boiled alive, because they're not properly killed and they get scalded in the scalding baths before they're killed. So, all this is about the rescue that Alicia and I did, and our presence there was more about the abuse at Foster Farm Slaughterhouse. There are so many slaughterhouses we could have been at that would have been closer to where we lived, but we went there because of the abuse outside the normal slaughter process. Does that answer the question?
The question is, have you, either a defendant asked or write to foster farms to remove, let me restate it, to remove injured chicken, knowing that these chicken would be either be mistreated, killed, or thrown away?
I hope that I've answered that, yes, we've tried to talk to them about the animals and how they treat them, but they will not listen.
Okay.
And we've also tried to talk to the authorities,
All right.
and they won't listen.
Thank you.
You cross-examine questions on that issue?
On that issue, and well, let me ask the, Mr. Chung, do you have any additional question for your client on this particular issue?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, good.
So on that day of September 28th, did you ask the truck driver if you could take any chickens out of his truck?
No,
Did you ask any Foster Farms employee if you could take the chickens?
no, there were no Foster Farms employees there, but I did not ask any.
Did you yourself ever send a letter to Foster Farms offering to take sick chickens?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Good. All right. Okay, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. All right, defense, any other witnesses to call?
Your Honor, the defense calls Daphne Zuniga. Can you-
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear the evidence you shall give in this matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
ma'am, would you state your full name and spell your last name, please?
My name is Daphne Zuniga. My last name is spelled Zuniga.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne, for being here today. And I always instruct my witnesses, well, I'll ask the questions. I think it's best for you to actually address the jury because they're the ones who really need to hear what you have to say. So let me just start by asking, what is your occupation, Daphne?
I'm an actor.
Tell me a little about your family background.
My father is Guatemalan, and he was a professor. I was born in San Francisco and raised in the Bay Area. And my father was a professor at Cal State Hayward. I think it's now called Cal State East Bay. And my mother was born here, and she was a minister.
Can you tell me about your background in the film industry?
Objection relevance?
Sustained.
Can you tell me about your background? Well, let me just say this. How do you know Alexandra? Is it in the film industry?
Yes, we met in 1986, 37 years ago.
And have you also been involved in advocacy together of various types?
I had environmental work, but yes, when we first met in 1986, she was starting an organization called Young Artists United, and she was getting young actors to go out to high schools around the country and talk to them about self-esteem, and she knew that they looked up to us because we were on the screen, and she wanted to help them with that platform that we had. So we used to do these assemblies around the country.
And what was your impression of Alexandra when you met her initially?
I was hugely impressed with her. Shortly after we met, she went off to the Great Peace March to walk across the country in the name of peace. She also early on had a homeless woman come live with her in her spare room.
And did you continue to do any kind of volunteer charitable work with her after you met her in 1986?
Charitable work. Well, it's hard to keep up with Alexandra and her charitable work, to be honest.
Well, tell us about your experience with Alexandra's charitable work.
Yeah,
You're aware.
well, sure, I will.
Objection, Your Honor, 1102. Goes beyond the scope.
Your Honor, I think this is relevant to the question.
I'll permit the question on a limited basis and move on from it.
So, yeah, go ahead and answer the question. Tell us about your experience with Alexandra's charitable work.
My experience of her charitable work is that she does a lot of it. She feeds the homeless weekly. It's Sometimes she can't join us for dinner because that's her night to feed the homeless. She's been doing that for years. She gives blood regularly and blood platelets all through the pandemic because she knew that the blood bank was very low on platelets. She doesn't brag about any of this. She also considered giving her kidney to a total stranger. We have a friend who lost a kidney and needed a transplant, and so she was considering donating hers so that if a stranger needed it, they would have it. I tried to talk her out of it, saying keep it for yourself, keep it for a friend or a family member, and her opinion was that what's the difference between a family member or somebody I know and that person who may not have a family member or a friend who's compatible. She kind of equalizes people in her mind and her opinion of people.
I think you said that you met Alexandra in 1986, which I think is 37 years ago?
37 years ago.
And I imagine you're both part of the acting community. You have a lot of shared relationships and friends within the acting community.
Objection,
Correct,
relevance.
we do.
I'm laying foundation for a question about her reputation.
Objection,
And so that's been over that 37-year time period.
Yes.
Interacting with her in the context of the acting community.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And have you formed an opinion about her reputation for honesty and integrity within the film community?
I mean, you can ask anyone that she's ever met, including people she's worked with, that she's known as one of the most generous, kindest, honest, caring people that they've ever met. You know that. Also in the industry, she's known as being humble. We have things called premieres and red carpet events, and we're encouraged to go out and buy a whole new outfit and not to wear it again, and she won't do that. She's actually asked to borrow something out of my closet for a premiere or event that she had. And I said, I don't have a lot, but sure. But she doesn't believe in waste, and I know that's something that people in the industry know about her. I mean, my opinion about her is she's by far the most amazing person that I've ever met. I spoke at her wedding and said that when I have a situation where I have to figure out what to do, I just think in my head, what would Alexandra do? And after I said this in her speech, by the way, I don't always do it, but at least I know what the right one would be. And several people came up to me, including her mother,
Objection here. Withdrawn.
and said, I do that too. So we're just incredibly lucky to have that sort of moral compass.
And I think you answered this question already, but I want to ask you directly too. I asked you about her reputation within the film community. What is just your personal opinion as to Alexandra's honesty and integrity?
As I said, she is the person in my life with the most integrity. She's never lied. She doesn't talk badly about anybody. She's honest to a fault. Only negative thing she says is about herself. She's kind of hard on herself sometimes, and that's hard for us. But she cares about people. People are equal to her. I mean, I mean it. Obviously, I'm under oath, but if you asked anybody that she's ever worked with, we all just go, I know, it's amazing, isn't it? And I feel blessed to have her in my life.
So if you could just tell the jury, when Alexandra says or does something, can you trust her, in your opinion?
Absolutely, 100%. If she says something, it's true. If she does something, it's with the conviction in her heart. She's just an incredibly compassionate and sensitive person.
No further questions, John.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, September 28th of 2001, when she took these two chickens, were you there?
Your Honor, this is outside of the scope of direct.
It's not.
Or-
Were you there?
I was not.
Thank you. No further questions. Your Honor.
All right, KG, when you speak, please. And Mr. Alicia Santurio, CR 018. 99A and B, counsel and the defendants are present, all 12 jurors plus the 2 alternates are present. All right, Mr. John, you may resume calling a witness, or I think you're going to play video.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls Celeste Yamada.
Okay. All right.
You can-
Ma'am, please take a stand here.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence you should give in this matter now before the court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated. Now, would you state your full name and spell your last name, please?
My full name is Celeste Yamada. My last name is Yamada.
Thank you. Ms. Young, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Celeste, I'm going to be asking the questions, but if I could just directly answer the questions to the jury, they're need to hear the answers. First, how old are you?
I'm 26 years old.
And where do you live, Celeste?
I live in Maine.
What is your employment?
I am an animals entertainment campaigns director for PETA.
And have you ever worked at a veterinary office?
Yes, I am a certified veterinary assistant.
What does that role entail?
It involves schooling and at least 400 hours of clinical volunteer experience under the guidance of a licensed veterinarian.
Did you work with birds a lot as a certified vet tech?
Yes, that is one of my passions, is to become an avian veterinarian. So I did work underneath the mentorship of a lot of exotic veterinarians and those veterinarians who work with farm animals.
What do you do for PETA exactly?
PETA, I am, like I said, in animals entertainment campaigns. So I work to help animals suffering like dolphins, tigers, bears, lions, oh my, all in circuses and zoos. So that's what I do. It's one of my passions.
And how did you first get interested in animal advocacy, Celeste?
So in high school, there was a 4-H type program. So there was actually animals on site, and in my opinion, they weren't really in the best care. They didn't have clean spaces to roam around in. They didn't really get clean food and water on a daily basis. And they're victims of teenage torment, and you could only imagine. Screaming, kicking kids, poking, prodding, picking them up in very scary ways. And so when I brought it up to the attention to my teachers, I kind of got met with the, oh, what are you gonna do? And so then I realized sometimes you have to take action even if you bring up an alarming point. And that's what really inspired me to become involved in animal advocacy.
And tell me specifically about your experience with animal rescue.
I wanted to be involved in animal rescue ever since I can remember. My first experience was actually volunteering at a cat and dog shelter with my grandma and my mom. We were like in the cat section, and we call it cat cozies. They're like little apartments, and we saw everyone from stray cats, cats hit by cars, or even just cats that, you know, no longer meshed with the family and they need to be rehomed. And if they didn't find their forever home, it's okay because they received unconditional love for life there.
And what about farm animal rescue?
I got my first experience, like I said, in high school, but it really inspired me. I fell in love with birds. They're like modern day dinosaurs. And so I started volunteering at several farm animal sanctuaries, including one I worked extensively at for 6 weeks, and she really specializes in farm animal care, and particularly animals from factory farms. And it actually inspired me to open up my own sanctuary. So I actually run a sanctuary that has a lot of birds from factory farms. So I got to see the conditions that they typically come in, the genetic ailments that they're sadly, you know, born with, and get to see them heal and grow.
Move on to the events of September 28, 2021. We just start by asking, were you involved in caring for 2 chickens brought to you by Alicia Santurio and Alexandra Paul on September 28, 2021?
Yes, I provided care for Ethan and Jax.
And how long did you provide this care for the 2 birds?
I really provided intensive care, emergency care for both of them for 72 hours straight. I really don't even recall if I slept past like a few naps, but I did provide Ethan 4 days of care before sadly he passed from the diseases he got from foster farms, and then I provided intensive care for.
Okay, all right, I'll second that. All right,
Sorry.
yeah, objection sustained. You need me on that?
Sustain, so.
You can continue and just don't mention where the birds are from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I then provided care for Jack's, intensive veterinary care for Jack's for a week before he went on to sanctuary.
Did you understand these birds were taken from foster farms by Alexandra and Alicia?
Yes.
And did you consult the veterinarian about their care?
Yes.
Who was that veterinarian?
Dr. Tristan Rosenberg.
Over the course of, I guess, the 3 to 4 days for Ethan or the 1 week for Jax, were you the primary caretaker for these 2 birds?
Yes.
And can you just tell the jury a little about the condition these 2 chickens were in?
I was just shocked that they were able to live past the evening, quite honestly. They're covered in filth. They weren't able to walk. They weren't even able to stand on their own, and they had a complete lack of appetite, which is completely unlike baby Cornish crosses. It was quite honestly heartbreaking to see them both in the condition they're in.
And what other symptoms did you observe in these 2 birds?
Like I said, they're completely immobile, they were covered in feces, no appetite, and it's just apparent that they're suffering.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask for permission to publish what has been marked as defense exhibit 2. Actually, don't show me yet. Permission to publish to the jury what's been marked and admitted as defense exhibit 203, video footage of the birds.
All right, you may, without objection.
Actually, before I publish, yesterday I went through with you a few video clips. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And you're familiar with the scenes in these video clips?
Yes.
And it's because you're personally present. Is that correct?
Yes.
And these are scenes of you giving care to the birds, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's not this one first, it's the other one. So that's fine.
You want the light stand a little bit?
Thank you.
Go to the beginning.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Yes, please, I'm sorry, Ron, please, dim the lights. Celeste, I think you testified, can you expand that so it's bigger?
So just for clarification, the screen has it titled Exhibit 34. Which exhibit is it marked with the court?
Yeah, the file name is Exhibit 34. I think when it was admitted as Exhibit 3 with 3 videos.
Exhibit 203, USB drive. Thank you. Just
Yes.
so the record's clear.
So, Celeste, I think you testified that the birds had splayed legs, were struggling to walk and sit up properly, they had low appetite. I'm going to play this video for you and just ask you to comment on it real quick. Is that you to the right there?
Yes.
And is that first chicken, the chicken that you all named Ethan?
Yes.
And is his struggling to walk here consistent with what you observed with him, of his condition over the 4 days that you cared for him?
Yes, he couldn't even sit up. He couldn't even sit up properly.
And is this other bird Jax?
Yes.
Okay. And Jax, was his condition over the week that you cared for him pretty consistent with what we're seeing in this video?
Absolutely.
Can you comment on what is unusual for you as someone who has extensive experience caring for birds about this video?
Yeah, I mean, so when they're sent to slaughter, they're roughly 6 weeks old, and that food for Cornish crosses, which is who Ethan and Jax are, should have been gone. Like, if I held a grape in front of them, my hand would probably be off. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, the fact that they had to be propped up to the point where they actually had to be sitting on top of the food to be somewhat interested is completely alarming. And they wouldn't stand. They should be romping around like puppies, and they're not. They needed to be moved constantly so that they weren't sitting in their own feces. As you can see, they're caked in diarrhea, and it could cause ammonia burns and gosh knows what other illnesses, and so they just required that intensive care.
So is it correct to say that these birds were in need of intensive care to survive, in your opinion?
They required emergency intensive care, in my opinion.
Given the condition that these chickens were in, what treatment did you give them?
I gave them antibiotics, pain medication, a joint supplement, and a dewormer. I also built slings made out of little tiny cat carriers that are taken apart, and I put a towel and cut little holes so that they could potentially build that muscle up so they could potentially stand on their own again.
And why did you need to build slings for them?
They were just, as you could see, just completely immobile, and kind of like if we were to lay on our leg for a long period of time and get that uncomfortable needle-like feeling. I didn't want them to feel that discomfort, on top of the fact that they were just having diarrhea like crazy, so I didn't want them to sit in their own feces nonstop.
In describing the chickens, did you see any material difference in terms of some of the symptoms you've mentioned between these two chickens?
I didn't see a difference.
And can you just tell the jury what happened to the bird after, I think you said the first 3 or 4 days?
On the 4th day, we sadly lost Ethan, to which I called Alicia, who took him to UC Davis for a necropsy. I really wanted to know how he died so that we could provide care for Jax just in case he was exposed to anything, which we did find out sadly that Ethan had IBV, which is extremely dangerous and deadly for birds to have. And so I continued to provide intensive veterinary medical care for Jax before he went to sanctuary.
And is Jax quarantined today from other animals?
Absolutely. IBV is extremely contagious, and so he's still quarantined today.
And the concern is there's some residual virus that could infect other animals.
Absolutely.
Did either of these chickens appear to you to have any commercial value or worth to a company like Foster Farms?
Objection beyond this witness's knowledge.
Sustained.
I don't think I have any further questions, Your Honor.
You're right. Cross-examination.
No questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Fairway, Ms. Lowe, any questions?
No, thank you.
All right. Need the witness to be excused?
People, yes.
By the people.
All
Yes,
right.
the witness may be excused.
Thank you, ma'am. You are excused.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, we're done with it.
I just want to put on the record and offer proof of 2 witnesses that we are calling just based on the court's prior rulings. The first witness is Raven Deerbrook. Ms. Deerbrook would testify that preceding September 28th, 2021, she did an undercover investigation inside the Foster Farms slaughterhouse, had placed cameras in there and documented the conditions. And Ms. Deerbrook would have laid the foundation and authenticated those videos, and those videos would have corroborated what Ms. Paul and Ms. Santurio watched before the date of offense. Secondly, we intended on calling the testimony of Bonnie Clapper. Ms. Clapper is an attorney who authored both the August 12th, 2021 letter to authorities detailing the concerns about animal cruelty, as well as the subsequent November 2022 letter with the same concerns relating to Foster Farms. Ms. Clapper would simply be testifying to authenticate and introduce those letters, as well as her knowledge of the lack of official action. We understand the court's rulings have effectively excluded the need for those individuals to testify. Nevertheless, we object to that ruling pursuant to Ms. Santurio's state and federal rights to due process, present a defense and effective
All right.
counsel.
Mr.
Sorry, I'm not just joining both
Yes.
those motions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Colby or Mr. Elwell, any response to that on the record?
Your Honor, the court's indication that the motion under the ruling stands, that those witnesses are inadmissible, then we submit.
All right. Thank you, counsel. Court's ruling will stand. All right, we'll resume tomorrow at 10 o'clock. If you can be here a little